So, a lot of people think that weight loss is largely about discipline and willpower or following like the correct diet or way of eating. And oftentimes, at least like very popularly now, that involves being very low carb or keto or completely eliminating sugar or, various different ways of eating or controlling one's eating using external methods, whatever that may be. But the reality is that a lot of people, and possibly even yourself, like already know what to do, right? Already know that lots of added sugar and processed foods are not healthy, are not, serving them, like not even like taking into account weight loss, just in general for overall health, right? And that's because the harder part is really about what is happening in those moments between our intentions and the actual actions that we end up taking, right? So things like stress and urges, just feeling totally emotionally exhausted for various reasons, like our automatic eating, our automatic responses, self-criticism, and really kind of this larger global feeling of just being and feeling very stuck around food. So in this video, I want to guide you through a couple short activities that are really inspired by the work that I do both in my online weight loss groups and in my coaching practice. And this really comes out of a long, line of experience, I guess. I have my whole health card deck, which are 50 practices to support wellness and well-being in body, mind, and spirit that I developed. And more recently, I put a lot of my approach into my Untangled Transformative Weight Loss Workbook, so you can check those out. And the idea here really is that it's not about perfection or extreme dieting or, forcing yourself to change through shaming yourself, criticizing yourself. The key is really about developing awareness and reconnecting with yourself and your own intuitive knowing and starting to shift patterns that don't serve you more intentionally. Okay? So, hello, I am Tova. I am a therapist and a coach, and I work with adults around emotional eating, self-awareness, behavior change, and really sustainable weight loss and weight management. And my approach combines a lot of different threads. I was trained in drama therapy, so I have a very expansive and creative approach just generally. I integrate mindfulness, reflection, of course, psychology, and science of behavior change in structured activities that really help people better understand their relationship with food, with habits, with urges, and of course with themselves. So wherever you are right now, I invite you to just approach these activities with curiosity instead of judgment. And so before we talk about changing eating habits, I want to start with something fairly simple, right? So many eating patterns happen automatically. We move through our days feeling very overstimulated, very stressed, very disconnected in a lot of ways, but including disconnected from our bodies and operating kind of almost entirely. I think of it as though we are like under a spell, like these just habitual ways of being that are just super familiar. And so this centering practice that I'm going to guide you through can really help, and its intention is to help interrupt that kind of autopilot and bring you back into the present moment. Okay? So if you want to, you can close your eyes, or you can simply soften your gaze and look downwards. And just start to notice the scents around you in your space. You don't need to analyze them. Just notice them. And now go ahead and let sound go and bring your attention to physical sensations. Maybe noticing your feet on the floor, your body in the chair or whatever it is that you're sitting on, the temperature of the air, just noticing sensation without immediately turning it into judgment. Now I invite you to notice the colors around you. Maybe quietly naming each color to yourself, or noticing every different shade of a certain color, different hue. Just really noticing the colors around you that you can see. Then now I invite you to notice the objects around you. Simply noticing the objects that are present in your space. And as you did with the colors, maybe naming them silently to yourself, letting go of any judgments or stories about the objects, and just noticing what objects are present in your space. And then go ahead and take one deeper breath and just notice whether anything shifted for you, even slightly, when you slowed down and directed your attention intentionally. And just personally, I really like this practice in particular because I find it to be a very simple way to shift into curiosity. Kind of like, oh, what colors are around me? How many different types of blue can I see? What are the actual objects in my space? And just getting really curious in a very granular way around my external environment, right? And so this practice, it has a little bit of inner focus, right, when we're thinking about sensations, but a lot of it is kind of directed like outward into our environment. So that is just one kind of example of a centering or kind of grounding practice. So one thing that I often talk about in my weight loss groups is that awareness is kind of really this first step towards changing behavior, right? And it doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't happen magically, but a lot of people are trying to change eating patterns while barely feeling connected to themselves at all. And I see this a lot when people are really looking to external tools to regulate their eating in various ways. So looking to external limits on food intake, or, really strictly kind of following macros or calorie tracking, right? And so they end up getting a lot of stuckness around planning, feelings of guilt, rules, mental noise, self-monitoring, and self-criticism. But the reality is that sustainable weight loss can often grow and result from learning how to pause long enough to notice, like, hey, what am I actually feeling now? Physically, emotionally, what's going through my mind? What is it that I actually need? Like, is it food, or is it maybe something else? And what pattern am I inside of? Am I inside of a pattern? Like, how is this kind of a cycle or an ongoing pattern that I routinely and regularly experience? What is it that happens right before I eat automatically, right? And so as we can start to kind of gather this awareness, it starts to create space for agency and choice, right? And choice is really where that change starts. Even just starting to realize, like, hey, I actually have a choice here. I can choose to eat, or I can choose to do something else. And if I choose to eat, that's fine. Okay, cool. I realize that it's a choice, right? That I'm making a conscious choice, right? And so my weight loss groups are focused not just on food, but more so those underlying patterns around food, around making the choices that we do around food. So now I want to guide you through kind of like a short visualization activity. I call it the future self visualization. And there's actually a version of this in my Untangled Weight Loss Workbook. And so the goal here is not like fantasy or perfection, but the point is really about reconnecting with the version of yourself that feels more grounded, more intentional, healthy, and really kind of free from that struggle around food. So if you want to try this, I invite you to kind of just take a moment to settle back into your body again and take a deeper breath. Maybe imagine yourself somewhere in the future. This isn't a perfect version of you, but it is a version of yourself who has created the meaningful change that you are seeking. So maybe bring to mind this version of you who feels more at peace in your relationship with food, with eating, and with your body. And maybe just go ahead and notice what your daily life feels like. Now that you are at peace in your relationship with food, with eating, and with yourself, what feels different emotionally? Maybe notice how you move through the day. What's morning look like? Afternoon or evening? How do you care for or comfort yourself? What does that look like? What in your life feels calmer? Notice how this future version of yourself responds to stress, to urges to eat in ways that don't serve you, maybe to difficult emotions. What are the habits that helped this version of you create change? Not extreme habits, but ones that are realistic, ones that are repeatable, just the small choices that this future version of yourself practices consistently. Notice how this version of you speaks to themselves. What thoughts or beliefs have changed? What became less important to this future version of yourself? What has become more important to them? Now, in your mind's eye, take a moment to just imagine sitting across from this future version of yourself. Take this as an opportunity to ask them, hey, what do you most want me to understand right now? Or maybe, what would help me most in this stage of the journey? Just pause and simply notice what comes up, what their response is to you. Then when you feel ready, take one deeper breath and slowly begin returning your attention to the present moment. So now if you want to, you can open your eyes and grab a journal, or even just kind of pause and reflect internally. And really the point here is to note down anything that kind of stands out to you or that you want to remember from that activity of meeting your future self. Anything that you noticed about your future self, or anything that they said to you, right? So maybe you want to write down anything that stood out to you at all in any way. Or maybe the qualities that your future self embodied. Maybe any habits or mindset shifts that seemed important. Of course, any advice that your future self might have for you. And then maybe, from that experience, one small shift that you could start practicing right now, right? So not a super huge, complete life overhaul, but just one intentional shift. So it could be an action, some kind of small step. It could just be some kind of a word, or kind of a more inner stance or inner shift, just the smallest thing. So I'll give you about another minute or so to play around and journal around that. All right, so now I want to guide you through one more activity or practice. So one thing that I've noticed a lot is that a lot of people kind of approach weight loss really focusing on a lot of like what's wrong with them, or what they perceive as what's wrong with them. But meaningful change can really grow out of a place where you recognize and honor the strengths that you actually already kind of possess and have. So now I invite you to take a moment and think about your own strengths. So these could be emotional strengths or practical strengths, maybe strengths that you have relationally, like with other people or even with your own self, creative strengths that you have, or just kind of like internal qualities. So some examples of these are resilience, adaptability, creativity, determination, curiosity, empathy, persistence, humor. Maybe you already have a large amount of self-awareness. Maybe you have a journaling practice of some kind, or even just like this willingness to keep trying. Okay. So just kind of, maybe identify a couple of your strengths. You can write them down. And as you kind of start to have this list of your own strengths, consider which of them could support you in creating change in this area of your life, right? Maybe strengths that have already helped you overcome challenges before in the past. And how might you begin to use those strengths more intentionally to support your weight loss or your weight management or whatever your, I don't want to say issue, but whatever it is that you're working to change around your relationship with food and eating. And I'll just give you another minute. Of course, if you want, longer, you can pause here. You can come back to this. This is something that you can revisit on your own. This is just kind of a quick little, not necessarily quick, but just an example of some things that you might try to reflect on. All right, so just to kind of start to wrap up here, again, I think that a big misconception in weight loss and weight management and changing our behaviors around food is that we need more self-control, more discipline, more control in general. But, a lot of us already are walking around with plenty of pressure on us, plenty of shame and fear and mental exhaustion, and kind of where to shift direction or shift focus is towards cultivating maybe some more awareness, more gentle structure, emotional understanding and empathy, both of ourselves and other people, trusting ourselves more, really leaning into and developing both our own intuition and our ability to listen and discern it, and really gathering those tools to interrupt automatic patterns that are not serving us, right? And so lasting change, this idea that it really can happen less through punishment, less through punishing ourselves, and more through learning how to stay present long enough to make different choices repeatedly over time. And so that's the kind of work that I focus on in my groups and in my coaching. So if this video resonated with you, if this approach, these practices, this process, I do offer, weight loss groups and individual coaching focused on emotional eating, behavior change, mindfulness, and self-awareness, and really kind of starting to cultivate and build these sustainable habits in a way that is personally relevant and meaningful to you, okay? So my approach is designed for people who are really kind of tired of that all or nothing dieting, shame-based approaches, and really feeling stuck in these repetitive cycles around food. So if this video was helpful for you, feel free to subscribe to my channel, share it with someone who might need it, check out my books, reach out to me, and I will see you next time.